Hello, I'm Gil Zilkha, and welcome to my channel. This is my series entitled Essential Classical Music, where we look at the best recordings of the major classical music works. This video is taken out of my larger video where I cover the major concerto recordings. And if you enjoy this, I hope you'll take the time to also watch that larger one. Just know that you don't have to watch the entire thing in one big long take. It is divided into chapters, so it's really easy to just click through and view whichever work you're curious about. So I hope you enjoy it. Now, we come to a composer who, in the pantheon of concertos, is a giant, and that is Johannes Brahms. He didn't compose very many, but what he did, he was sort of a perfectionist. He could wait a long time before committing to something. He famously took a long time for his first symphony because he felt Ludwig hovering over his shadow. I'm going to focus on three of his concertos, and first is the two piano concertos, which are often marketed as a set. And so I'm first going to talk about sets of the two concertos together. And the first one I'm going to talk about is one of the absolute classics of the gramophone, and that is Emil Gilels with Eugen Jochum and the Berlin Philharmonic. This is from the early 70s. And this is one of my desert island concerto recordings. It just has everything. It has power, humanity, poetry, beautiful sound. Two artists who understood Brahms very well. There are some who say that it's a little bit too much on the slow, luscious side. I obviously don't agree with that. On the other hand, there are other recordings that tell other sides of the story as well, which we'll get to. But for me, it's just the beauty of the sonorities that comes through so strongly in this recording that it's just so captivating. This again is my desert island choice. But there are other wonderful recordings as well. Another one that's sort of in a similar tradition, I would say the broad grand tradition, is Daniel Barenboim, accompanied by John Barbaroli with the New Philharmonia. This is from 1967. And these are also sort of grand, just a lot of the depth to the sound. Barbaroli is a very passionate conductor, and he brings that in these works. Again, these are works too that really the conductor and the orchestra are very important to the proceedings. And so Barbaroli also deserves credit, as does Barenboim, who just plays beautifully, wonderful color and power and grace. Now, a recording that's maybe a little bit different from these two that I just mentioned, but another great interpretation, is from Leon Fleischer. We mentioned him earlier with the Beethoven Concerto, and again, a collaboration with George Szell and the Cleveland Orchestra. First of all, Szell, again, brings that energy, that crispness. He recorded the first piano concerto. We're going to talk about some others, actually, several times. He sort of was a master at that. He really was. George Szell gets the award for accompanist. Barbaroli is actually kind of close, too. But Szell was just a wonderful accompanist for concertos. And then Fleischer brings that wonderful artistry, that beautiful touch to the adagios, as well as crispness and just beautiful artistry. The recording quality is pretty good. This is from the late 50s, early 60s. I would say that my opinion, the first concerto comes across a little bit better. I think the second concerto here is a slightly underpowered compared to others, but the artistry is still wonderful, and it's still an essential version as well. Now, going back a little further, this is a mono recording. We have versions from Solomon. This is with the Philharmonia from the late 40s, early 50s. In the first concerto, he's conducted by Raphael Kubelik, and in the second one, he's conducted by Issei Dubrovin. And like I said earlier with the Beethoven, with Solomon, you get this really supreme artistic mind, just a real thinking musician. But that doesn't mean that it's not exciting. He plays with wonderful power. He picks his spots, and he's just a wonderful. It's really great for these concertos because they're so fluid and there's such fluctuations in the dynamics. That a pianist like Solomon is really one who illuminates the greatness of the works. The first concerto is recorded a little better. Was recorded in 1952. That actually sounds pretty good. The second is 1947, so it's a little bit more distant mono. But again, we're listening for the artistry in this case, not so much the sound quality. And we also have versions from Arthur Schnabel. Again, these are split onto separate discs on excellent transfers from Naxos. The first was conducted by George Zell back in 1938 with the London Philharmonic. And then the second was with Adrian Boult and the BBC Symphony. That was in 1935. I would say the first, I guess a few years make a difference because the first actually does sound a little better. Schnabel, he was famously sometimes kind of sloppy. He was a very flexible, very tempestuous performer. But it's really exciting, really beautiful in the slow movements. If you love these concertos, you're gonna want to hear Schnabel's insights as well. So that is the Brahms concertos in pairings of the first two, or at least you can take individuals and add them together. I'm going to cover a few now individual performances, and one that is really just about up there with the Gilels Jochum is Clifford Curzon, and again with George Zell, and this is with the London Symphony from 1962. This is of the first piano concerto, and this one actually complements the Gilels Jochum well because this one does have a little bit more zip to it. The opening with Zell and the London Symphony is just fantastic, just really dramatic and powerful. And then you have Curzon, who also produces these powerful sonorities, but then just this beautiful touch that he brings to the quieter moments as well. And the recording quality, this is really a sort of a demonstration class, early stereo Decca recording. So this is a classic recording of the Brahms first for good reason. Now moving on to the second, another recording that may complement the sort of slower Gilels Jochum is the earlier Gilels recording. This is with Fritz Reiner and the Chicago Symphony. This was recorded in, when was it? I think in 1958. Somewhere, I think in the late 50s. And the recording quality is pretty good. And you hear Gilels, sort of a fresher, sprightlier Gilels, and then also you have Reiner conducting the Chicago Symphony with a little bit more zip than you have, and maybe crispness than you see with Jochum. And this is just a really exciting, aggressive performance. Now, going back to maybe again, this is sort of the broader interpretation. We have this one from 1967 with Wilhelm Backhaus. We haven't discussed Backhaus yet, a wonderful Beethoven pianist, as well as Chopin and Brahms. He was somewhere, I think, around the age of 83 when this was recorded. But he still brings it, and he's accompanied by Karl Boehm and the Vienna Philharmonic. Very good sounding recording. Maybe because he was a little older, that's part of the reason it was a broader interpretation. He does have recordings which are also really good choices for both concertos from the 30s, when he was obviously more of a skilled virtuoso. But this is still really good. He brings his insights, his power, his poetry. It's a really beautifully inspired recording, and still one of the top choices for the Brahms second. As is something a little bit more on the faster, more aggressive side. is Sviatoslav Richter. This was recorded around, I think, somewhere around 1960. This is with Eric Leinsdorf and the Chicago Symphony. And this is just a really powerful, assertive, strong performance of the Brahms Second, which also has Richter's inimitable individuality and artistry as well. So, yeah, there are just so many great ones that I'm just going to keep listing them. I'm coming down to just one more. This is an older recording. This is from 1942. And this is with the same duo that I mentioned for the Emperor Concerto, but this is during the war, so several years earlier. This is Edwin Fischer, Wilhelm Furtwängler with the Berlin Philharmonic, recorded in that early magnetic tape. So it's rough sounding, but for 1942, it's still fairly listenable. It's just, it is kind of rough and dim. And these two artists, again, it's hard to pass up on, at least hearing them out, because they're both supreme musical geniuses. This is a very powerful, assertive account, and again, it's also as much a conductor's piece as a pianist. So they bring it really strongly. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, I hope you'll also take time to click the like and subscribe buttons. And with that, I want to wish you all a great day and happy listening.